Hey there, everyone. Welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Lailani, and I am so stoked tonight, you guys, because I have an amazing guest. She is the #1 best-selling author on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, anywhere where you buy books. And this book, I tell you, is worth it, okay? It is Mexican Sorcery, a practical guide to Brujeria de Rancho. And her name is Laura Davila. Laura Davila is a 5th-generation Mexican witch, a longtime practitioner of Mexican ensalmeria, hechicería, brujeria, and folk Catholicism. Born and raised in Mexico, Laura has lived in the U.S. since 2010. Laura identifies as a bruja de rancho, which is a ranch witch, a term with great resonance in Mexico, indicating knowledge of botanicals and the natural world. She learned her practices at her grandmother's knees, and Laura just so happens to be a great tarot reader and a Bach flower remedy practitioner. Now, I hope you guys have questions ready because tonight is going to be filled with so much information. So let's bring her on. Enough talking from me.
Hey, how are you?
You look beautiful tonight. How
Hi,
are
thank
you?
you. Well, it has been, like quite, right, like a
Yeah,
journey.
I hear you. So, Laura, how does it feel being one of the best-selling authors in the spiritual category and being #1 for quite some time, several weeks now?
Yeah.
How do
Uh,
you feel about that? Did you ever think this was ever going to happen?
I, to be honest, I didn't even like expect to write a book at any point. Luckily, that was something that I didn't even was looking for, and it came just like pretty much like it fell on my lap, as you know
Yeah, and as all
easy like
divine
that.
things are, right?
Yeah. There is a lot of people who said like, oh my god, it takes years to be published by a traditional, like company, not like self-published.
Right.
How long it took you? And I'm like 2 or 3 weeks, and everybody's like, nah, you're kidding. No, I mean, seriously, I thought like it was like a joke, like they were like pranking me, like, hey, you're going to do this, and like those TV shows where then it's a camera, ha ha, it was, like a joke. But no, it was just like, magical like that,
Yeah.
like, you
And
know
you are a source. I mean, this book is an absolute like outpour of information. There's so much information in here. And I think what I loved about your writing in particular is in between each working that you gave or each symbol that you described, you did so in a very historical sense. It wasn't like, oh, red means love and blue means this and this candle means, it wasn't dry. It wasn't just, information that just popped out of nowhere. You had context for every single thing that was in this book. And there were things in this book that I never even knew were Mexican in nature. And I think that's something I would love to talk to you about tonight. In the very beginning of your book, you brought me to tears because there was a section where you talk about how brujeria from Mexico, sorcery from Mexico, and just the overall magic and the things that you do in Mexico comes from a place of suffering. It comes from a place of survival. It comes from a mixture of all of the different cultures that came into your space throughout history. And it really brought me to tears because as someone who's also mixed, right? It's hard sometimes to reconcile with certain parts of yourself. And you made the European part, the part that a lot of people are so afraid to connect with, you made that part a little bit more digestible. You described how we came from Iberia. That wasn't just white European. It's very much a very diverse, culturally mixed thing. Tell us about your journey, starting in Mexico, growing up in Mexico with your grandmothers, and learning this very painful history.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of things that we didn't discuss either, because a lot of people who has the Sephardic ancestry. That's why it is called in a lot of books of Mexican history the 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 hiding
Mm,
ancestry, the hiding, because it was like, a lot of people think like a difference from Salem. There
mhm,
were 51 people who died in Mexico in the stake.
mm.
They were burned,
Wow.
and a lot of this like misinformation that is going on social media, where they think like people who were indigenous like were the ones that were burning. This
Mm,
is not historically true.
right.
They were,
Yeah, they definitely paint out Mexico to be like barbaric and like blood sacrifices, throwing bodies down the temples and all this
yeah,
crazy stuff.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. So it is, mostly the people who died in the stake in during the Mexican Inquisition were Jews, like who were trying to hide from the Catholic Church, you know,
yeah,
that they were practicing the Sabbath, they were practicing their Jewish costumes, but now in Mexico.
yeah,
So the law in that time was like, if you were the Inquisition couldn't like process you unless you were like baptized.
mm,
So all these people who emigrated from, you know, Iberia, from Spain, were people
Spain.
who were supposedly converts, but they were not. A
Mm,
lot of them, even like fake paperwork to prove they were like fourth or fifth generation conversos.
yeah.
Um,
And these
so
are, and you're talking about the Jewish community, you're talking
yes,
about the Moors, you're talking about the Middle
exactly.
East, you're talking about all of those places that
Hmm.
quote unquote converted under Spain, but really didn't, and then
Didn't.
got transported over to Mexico, where the beautiful, rich history of Jewish mysticism and the Kabbalah, where the beautiful, rich history of Moors and Spanish folk Catholicism all got
Yes.
entrenched
Uh-huh.
in Mexican folk traditions.
Exactly. And
Wow.
um, and I talk how the these like, and I think in a lot of places it was like a cultural shock, but here was like, oh my god, we are so alike. Like when I
Yes.
talk about court magic, I said there were these sorcerers, who were already predicting the future,
Yeah.
who are already doing not magic. So when they start like seeing like these Iberian brujas at the same practice, that's how
Yes.
that 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 became super strong, because that syncretism, yes, it was forced, but at the same time we were able to hide a
Yes.
lot of these practices behind another ones, because they were already alike. you know
Right. And
that
it's
is another.
interesting because we're in a really weird sort of environment right now in the spiritual community, especially online. And the weird environment is this cry out to decolonize our practices, right? But by doing so, we're kind of creating a system of us and them again. And this time we're
Exactly.
decolonizing because the white colonizers, that's bad. We don't want to connect with that. And in your book, you did a really great job of basically saying, like, look, this sucked. It happened to us and it sucked. But at the same time, we have to be thankful to these spirits. Like, it wasn't the spirits that colonized us, it was the people. And the spirits
Yes.
gave us a place to hide our spirits.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, I try to portray that a lot of what we call the Europeans, they were already hiding from
Yeah.
other Europeans. You know what I'm saying? Because remember, like the Andalus, um, Spain was under Moors for 800 years.
Right.
So, you know, even the suffering, yes, is a lot in our indigenous ancestry, but it started with the Romans. So let's have a little bit of more like context, and at the same time it's something maybe is going to be people who agrees with my way of thinking and
Mm,
some others not. But
right.
i'm I'm a divorced woman who married for the second time. I'm a daughter of a divorced couple,
Mm,
and as kids, as or like childish kid, we always try to place the guilt in the mom or the dad or who was it. You know what I'm saying? Um, and yes, of course, there is always like the mom or the dad who mess it up really bad, but that doesn't mean we should stop like loving dad or loving mom. You
right.
know, we or like say, you
You
know
wouldn't
what,
be. You wouldn't be here.
my dad had like a beautiful voice that says, but my dad was an asshole. I'm not singing anymore anytime
That's
again because I hate my dad. Because
that's
everything that
crazy.
comes from my dad is bad.
That's crazy.
With that thinking, probably you're going to hate a part of yourself too, because even if you deny it consciously, yourself, your soul is part
Yes.
of it too. And we're connected. 7 generations, probably more before us. And I know there is people who don't like to claim the colonizer, but all of us have a lot of colonizer in our veins.
Yes.
So it's a really beautiful quote by Galeano that it says like, in America, all of us have indigenous blood. Some people has this blood running on their veins. Some others have it in their hands. But
Yup.
there is some who have it in both. Just
Yes.
be aware of them.
Yes.
So why not claim your whole self, and we have to talk about these things because we cannot hide them either under the rock. But I think too, like, we have to speak loud from a place where it's healing, and not more like, okay, let's divide ourselves again. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. I think
because
part of the decolonization, part of the process is reconciling that and healing that part of yourself. And you and I both know that in our traditions there is this idea of a fragmented soul and how pieces of your soul can go missing and the work that it takes to retrieve all of that. And
yeah,
that comes from these kinds of traumas, that comes from these kinds of neglects, pushing
yes,
away of oneself. It can be done to you, but you can also do it to yourself.
exactly, which is awful.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I try to be very clear in the book. Everybody who wants to read it, practice it, and like have like a benefit from it, can do it, because uh just like like gender uh is a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
So it is being Mexican, because being Mexican is not a race.
Mm.
Is a state of mind, a culture,
A
you know
culture. Yes.
so if you want to self-identify as Mexican, and you love the culture and you come from a place of respect, why
Yeah.
not? So, and because people doesn't realize that our ancestors themselves were very, very welcoming of other people.
It's true. It's true.
So mi casa es su casa. siéntese, yo le
Mm.
arrimo la comida, ¿verdad? Y ahora nosotros, we're all selfish and like excluding people. I don't know who we are anymore because that's not what we were
That's
taught.
not what we were. For those of you English speaking people out there, mi
That's
casa
all.
es su casa. My house is your house. Come sit, come have a meal. I'll make you a plate. That's what she's saying. And that's how our people are, and it's true. Some people blame our gentleness and our hospitality as the reason as to why we got colonized, because we were too soft, we were too welcoming, we were too this. But you know what? I'd rather be soft and be in trouble for being soft and welcoming than being in trouble or having consequences for being a brute and being nasty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And another thing that I makes me like wonder, like everybody is like, I wish you have the love and the understanding and the peace that we had before we were colonized. And
Uh,
I'm like, okay, wait a minute. First of
what
all,
history book you reading?
yeah, like, you didn't know what the Aztecs used to do, the Tlaxcaltecans, what they did to the Olmecs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you think they were really peaceful, like
Right.
between each other, but
Yeah.
that wasn't
And
it.
you know
And
what's crazy? A
besides, we
lot of
would not
people.
even be here. Like, you will not be enjoying from that. Me neither, because I have this ancestry too, just like you do.
That's it.
So, and I
Exactly.
think I know that the things were like really bad, but thanks to that bad thing, I'm here. My kids are here. We are here. So just
Yeah.
claim everything. Claim the
Claim
good,
it.
because our ancestors already paid the price.
Exactly.
It's just
Exactly.
like, okay,
The
a lot of
it's
people
it's
will
like
say
the
like,
feminist movement with the voting. All of
yes,
these women, they sacrifice themselves for you to vote, for you to be like, I'm not voting as a woman.
yeah, exactly, because all of them suck. And yeah,
Yeah,
they suck, but or
but you
like
can
my
vote.
kids saying like, you know what, America sucks, I don't like it. And I literally cried tears of blood for them not to claim an American passport and be able to travel all around the world. I already paid the price, go get it,
Go get
go
it.
get them.
And I think that
So
that's something, I think whether we're talking about spirituality, whether we're talking about a job, whether we're talking about just whatever your destiny has out there for you, take it, go get it. Your people already died, shed blood, cried, lost all of it for you to be here at this exact moment. So do the thing. And I
and
love,
that,
so tell us about your story as an immigrant, because you came here in 2010.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
So
you lived the majority of
I
your life in
I
Mexico.
yes, I immigrated here when I was almost 26. I
Um,
already had two kids. I brought two kids. One was 9, today is 23. I have a 23-year-old. Um, the other one was 5. Right now is 18. So uh, we're going to go to Chicago soon for his boot camp graduation, because both are in the Navy.
wow.
And
Proud mama.
yeah, I was 7 years undocumented. They were undocumented for 10. So it was really hard. A lot of, a lot of lawyers said like, we don't want to take your case because most likely you're not going to fix your status. There is no way. Even though I was married to an American. And finally, in 2016, I became resident, and 2 years ago, I got my citizenship. So
Congratulations.
yeah, and yeah, it had been like quite a journey. But if somebody have told me like 11, 12 years ago, hey, you're going to be able to communicate in English, you're going to write a book in English, I would have been like, there is no way. So it's it's
And
those
yet
things
here
that,
you are.
yeah, I
Number
think,
one bestseller. Yes,
yeah.
bitch. Yes.
So I think a lot of things that I didn't understand or made sense back then, because it was a lot of suffering and sorrow. Now I understand like why, you know.
Exactly.
So
So let's get into the juiciness of your book because it is so good. So I want to go everywhere with it, but I think probably some of the best pieces of it can be kind of alchemized or summarized by saying it's an earth-based religion. It's definitely everything about it is very tactile, practical, use what you got kind of vibe. And it's interesting because people look at Mexico kind of the same way that they look at Africa, like as if it's just one giant monolith and like there's not other countries or pieces in it. And you did a great job in here to explain that, like, nah, one town can do their brujeria and their sorcery one way, and the town right next to it can do it completely different. So like, can you talk to us a little bit about what Brujeria de Rancho is and how that, like, what does that look like in the grand scheme of Mexico?
well, I focus the majority of my writing on the Huastec region. So will be the states of a little bit more than the Huastec region was like Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, Coahuila, Veracruz, San Luis Potosí, North Zacatecas. So
That's big. That's
it's
a
a
lot.
it's, it's a lot, but still it's not the whole Mexico. You
Right,
know.
right.
Um, so I try to focus on that region. I try to like somehow make that point across where, because that is a lot of, that's another thing that I saw when I came to the online community. That was like certain people saying, no, that's how it is, and this is the traditional Mexican, and I was like, from
From
where?
where?
You
Traditional
know,
from
like
where?
it's just like this is the brujeria that we were taught by our elders because our elders, like we're from Mexico. Yeah, what part of Mexico? It's
Right.
just like, and other brujerias are not the real. And it was like, okay, let me explain how this works. Have you eat pozole? Yes. Okay. What kind of pozole? Well, the pozole, the red pozole. Do you know it's a red one? Do you know it's a green one, a white pozole, and a black pozole? So depending on the part of Mexico you're asking for that pozole in a restaurant, most likely is the color and the kind of meat that you're going to receive.
Right.
That pozole. You know, that doesn't mean that the red one or the green one is more traditional than the white one.
You see?
And that is another thing like I came across with like people like taking out the folk Catholicism from the plate. And I'm like, well, you can do that if you want, but if you take the hominy out of the plate of a pozole, either is white, black, red, or green, it's not pozole anymore. Es un
Right.
caldo. It is what it is. Es un caldo. Pero no me le llames brujería because, or at least not Mexican brujería, because every part of Mexico now, with when they call it brujería, um, has a lot of elements of folk
A lot of
Catholicism,
baggage.
and
To
it's not like you're romanticizing the Catholicism. I think I get very clear in the fact that how we experience the church. Pretty
yeah.
much, we have the same belief, but it's under new management.
And
You know,
it's
so
interesting because you were like, you know what? They, even though they forced it upon us, we took it. We were just like,
yeah,
fuck it. You want to give us Catholicism? Fine. Fuck it. We're gonna
yeah,
take it and we're gonna like make it our own. And like that's
yeah,
so empowering. It's so
yeah.
empowering.
So now, like a folk religion, I think, or religion itself is under new management. That's why we see a lot of like new traditions that like the hoodoo or like Appalachian being popular, because I think people is getting aware
Tired.
of, okay,
Yeah.
we can do this and we can do it and nobody can stop me. you know so that's something that I think it was the hardest of course there is people who is going to be still mad and say that, you know, that's not how it is. And but I just, every time that I encounter somebody like that, and I'm like, when is the last time that you went to Mexico?
Right. Right.
You know. And it's funny because I wish, I always told my husband, I don't understand Americans. You know, and then Americans, I refer people of every race and every, you know, social class, every gender, even the non-binary, people who was born and raised here. And my husband is like, I don't either, so don't try. And I'm an American baby. So it's very like, you know, right now my only thing that is not going well right now is with the audiobook,
Okay.
because let me tell you, they choose somebody, they didn't even let me know who was going to narrate, and a lot of people were mad at me like, how can you allow that? You know, that person doesn't even speak Spanish. And th- let me check, and I'm going to, okay, the person read the words in Spanish, but she has like an accented like Spanish, you know, not a
Yeah.
native. But I tell them, even if I have read it myself, you will have an accent there, because everybody who speak a second and a third language is going to have an accent in their second and their third language,
Right.
because it's not their maternal language. And it's funny because you see things like these, and at the same time I had like a Patreon. I don't like to call them my students, because I think I learn more from them than they do from me. I remember one time that I told her, hey, this is the prayer. I tried to adjust it, but you have to understand that a lot of the meanings of these prayers are really tied to Spanish language. That's why, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she got all mad at me. Like,
Mm,
but Spanish is the language of the colonizer. Okay, I understand, but this is the language that we had been speaking for the last 600 years in Mexico.
right.
I get your point, but we have 600 years like,
You can't just ignore that.
exactly. But
Magic
yeah,
didn't
but you're like,
disappear.
you're like, you know, saying these because she got really offended,
Mhm.
right? Days passed, and she was so pissed at somebody who was calling herself a bruja because she was white and she didn't have any. And I'm like, why do you care? If
Right.
bruja, after all, is a colonizer word. Explain to me
Right.
why you
Now,
were mad at
what do
me.
you do? Well, you know, what kind of advice do you give to um, Mexican Americans who are trying to reconnect to their traditions in Mexico and their culture in Mexico? What's some advice that you would give them, and for them who are actually respectful and are willing to open up to all sides of their DNA?
I think like the advice that I will give them, first I will tell them that something that I want somebody to tell my great grandchildren when I'm not here. Your parents, or your grandparents or great grandparents, probably 5 generations ago, they immigrated here out of love for you, even if they didn't even know you yet. I know you think like you were disconnected, you were uprooted from the place that you have a lot of probably nostalgia, probably melancholia. I don't know how I call it, but the fact that you're here and your kids are here and your parents were here is because somebody 3, 5, 4 generations ago even rescued their own lives, left their own parents, their dead people behind for you. And the ones that are coming after you, through you. That's the first thing that I will tell them.
I love it.
So first thing, like, this was totally out of love. How do you're going to give back that love? Giving it back to yourself, loving every part of yourself, loving your history, embrace it, and work the magic that they talk to you, even if it was not in words, even if it was just by actions.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, okay? First of all, stop trying to make me cry during this live. Like this, I
I
can't do
almost
this
cried.
right now, okay? Because that was like legit. No, seriously, that was legit. And I think another piece of it too is, um, when you talk about Brujeria de Rancho, right? You talk about it in similar ways that like um a lot of our Western European pagan friends talk about it. Like, pagan is like the people of the land, the people of the outskirts, the rural areas. And Brujeria de Rancho you described as basically the a magic that comes from the rural land areas, from the ranch. And it's very hands-on and it's very earthy and natural. And I think one of the things about our history as Latino people is we are not ashamed to identify with the fact that our magic, there's no such thing as black and white. There's no good, bad. There's definitely this idea of we work our work, but we must always protect ourselves. And like you said, paying the best respect to our ancestors is to self-care and take care of yourself, and to claim your power and to claim your ancestors' power and all that. But part of that is sometimes doing magic that might make you a little bit uncomfortable, and you kind of go into that a little bit in the book. And you talk about it in terms of the different tools that you can potentially use, like scissors, which we'll get into, the knots, even sometimes using saints for
Yes.
that type of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably a lot of people's grandmas were already doing that without calling it brujeria, you
Right.
know?
Well, such a
Uh,
stigma, such a stigma.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but they were, the thing that I love the most is a lot of people starting to remember. Like, oh my God, I remember my grandma used to have this in the house. I
Yeah.
remember my grandma used to do that. But even if you ask her today,
She
she
won't
will
know.
not know why.
Yeah.
And you put it in a way where you're giving credit where the credit is due. Like, oh,
Yes.
this comes from the Nahuas, this comes from the Otomi, this comes from, because that's another thing that I don't like about social media is like indigenous people think like indigenous people whom? Like
Right.
which ones?
Which ones?
I saw like the other day like some when we have this like outrage about the abortion, somebody posted like the Aztecs were practicing the abortion because that was a right, and I was like, no, that was punished with death. What are you talking about? That was like it is today, a
Yeah.
social class privilege only reserved for the wives, the daughters of the Tlatoanis. And I can tell you, you know
Right.
why it was not, because they were like a war people.
Right.
Every time you were taking a baby, you were taking a soldier, a warrior, just like here. That's why they don't want to make it here legal, because who's going to enlist? We
Right.
know like the majority of the kids who enlist, including my kids, is kids didn't have money, their parents to send them to college and didn't want to get in debt.
Right.
It was the same thing back then. Don't tell. But somebody said like indigenous, but you're assuming the Aztecs or you're assuming another, like indigenous group, but that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So that's why every time like um somebody posts something, I always like I said
You
like
got to ask
get
why.
where are they getting this
Where are they
information?
getting it from? And you did an amazing job, just like you said, explaining the why behind
Yeah,
something. Like
that
I,
was
again, several times I came to tears in here because I remember, my grandmother when I was sick one day, grabbing her alcolado and like, putting on her hands, slapping her hands, doing the whole thing, and then like rubbing me like vigorously and saying prayers. And
yeah,
I don't remember what any of that was and why she did things like that, but she did it and she believed in it so hard. and the pain would go away. And I would think, oh, it's just grandma's love, but there was a magic there. Or when she's sitting by the window sewing and rocking in her chair, and then you walk over and you say something inappropriate, and she snaps the scissors at you, and she tells you something very specific, and you think, oh, she's just mad because I said a curse word or something, but really she's cutting something that you had just said out of the space. And
Yes.
these are all little things. And just like you said, the magic is in the details. That was a reoccurring statement in your book that was
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
true.
they used to say that all the time. La magia está en los detalles. Y también el diablo está en los detalles. So that's something that they used to say a lot. Or like the thing like, oh, no andes descalzo porque te vas a enfermar. Because for
Mm,
them, the majority of our grandmas, not only in Mexico, they always thought like or disease enter through our feet.
mm,
So it was like a lot of that, like, like for me it was like an homenaje. I don't know how to say that word, like to honor
yes.
a lot of them. And I said like at the beginning, like, this book is for your abuelas who didn't, a lot of them didn't learn English. They were not because they didn't want to, not because they couldn't, or they were less modern. Is because they had to work 2 or 3 jobs, for survival. So at what time they were going to go to ESL,
Right.
ESL, like, so it was a way for me to like say thank you, and at the same time you guys understood a little bit more that there is, no way to do it wrong. Because I have seen a lot of people who is like, oh, but my grandma didn't do like that, do like this, do it like your grandma taught you, because that doesn't mean it's wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because probably your grandma was, more to the south or more to the northeast, so, and I think that was a lot of fear too, like, of people before, like, sharing magical recipes or magical goods, because they were mocked like, why you're saying like this is Mexican if you're mixed or you don't speak Spanish, or, and I think we're losing that, like, and we really need like more people to talk about what their grandmas did, what their mothers did, what they learned, when they were in vacations in Mexico. I want
Mm,
people to feel like it matters what they have to say,
it
you know?
does. It does. We have a comment here, and I kind of want to use this to lead into our next question here. Ever since then, I've been researching my Taino background in brujeria. I definitely be getting your book. Thank you for talking. But what I wanted to lead into is on your subject about corn. I did not know this. So Creatrix, listen to this. But apparently, the word maize, which is the Mexican word, came
Hmm.
from a Taino word,
Yes.
because the Caribbean, Mexico, South America, we were trading, we were talking, we were hanging out. We mixed information, we interbred, all that good stuff. I mean, we are people, we are the people. Okay. So
Hmm.
when I read that in your book, my ear to ear, because I'm Puerto Rican as well. So to see a little piece of my ancestor in there saying, hey, the Tainos helped us with this word, and now,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
corn being such a prized thing in Mexico, and all the colors that it comes in, and all the uses that you have for it, the cuisine, the magic, I mean, all of it. So it's the fact that like the Tainos played like just a little itty bitty part in
No,
that
it's a lot. We as
felt so
Mexicans
good.
call ourselves los hijos del maíz. Imagine. And im- that's the thing that I like. Imagine, like, as Mexicans, as culture, as people from there, we call ourselves los hijos del maíz. But that, like, is like the Taino people, like, baptize us, not even the Spanish. You know what I'm saying? But
Sure.
we have to acknowledge and give the credit
Words
where
too.
the credit is due. But maybe a lot of people will be like, but why if it's, like Teocintle? But no, we don't. call ourselves los hijos del Teocitle over there. You know, we call ourselves, we have 600 years calling ourselves los hijos del maíz. And a lot of, you know, people from other places know us in that way too. So it was like, let me just like make clear that it was a lot of like coming and going, not only with practices and foods, even with words and ways of speaking.
Yes.
So
I want to also acknowledge parts of your book that I think really you really touch on a lot of socio political cultural things within your magic here, like when you gave these recipes out, or you gave sort of the system that someone can create their own magic from, you did so in the context of social culture, social cultural stuff that's going on in Mexico. And one of the things that really stood out to me, because it is across all Latinidad, is the machismo, right? The misogyny, the patriarchy, the abuse that Latina women endure from our men. We
yes,
love our men. We take care of our men. Our sons are prized, our husbands are number one always, but yet we have to endure them. And a lot of our magic is about enduring them. It's about stopping abuse. It's about reclaiming our money. It's about getting confidence and feeling self-love so that we can stand up to our husbands and to our brothers and to our fathers. And I
yes,
think you did an amazing job here giving some recipes and giving some ideas to kind of tackle that social construct that's in
the,
place.
the injustice, the el
Yeah.
desbalance. Yeah, to put
Yeah.
like more like to the same level the scale, because it's really really not, you know. So yeah, I talk about machismo, misogyny, feminicide, like another spell that everybody has, like saying, hey, thank you. I really feel like in the Latino community we don't talk enough
You don't.
about financial violence, you know. and
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, because we normalize it so much to the point that we have even songs that make
Yeah.
it normal, like, oye, Bartola, ahí te dejo estos 2 pesos,
Yeah.
pagas la renta, el teléfono y la luz.
Yeah.
So,
But there's a pride in working and making money that our men love to have about themselves. Their pride about working and making money. But that doesn't mean that they can hold that over us like a carrot and say we have full
exactly,
control. You can't do nothing because we have all the money.
exactly. So, and that's the other thing. Like, somebody told me, like, when I was writing the book, well, but that doesn't happen too much anymore here in the United States. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
probably will not happen in the same way that it happens in Mexico, but I have seen a lot of guys who
It
still have
happens.
some control through child support.
Yes, it
Okay,
happens.
okay, you're going to divorce me. I'm going to like work under the table, or I'm going to, you know, quit my job and I get one so you don't leave me. So
Mhm.
it happens in other ways, but it's still happening, and it's still something that we're struggling
Yeah.
with. So yeah, I took a lot of like try to like put the context where, you know,
Yeah.
why we were doing these things, why we came up with these kind of spells. It wasn't because we're evil or nothing. We had to defend ourselves some way, you know. So
Again.
that was pretty much, you know,
Yeah. It brings
like
it back to
all
full
about.
circle. This idea of this magic is rooted in survival. It's rooted in suffering. It's rooted in all of the things that we've been talking about. A lot of times people when we talk about things like hoodoo or brujeria and spiritualities that come out of marginalized communities of suffering, they usually just put it in the big context of colonialism, but they
Yeah,
forget about the mini colonialisms that happen every day, the domestic violence, the child abuse, the things that we endure every day, the the little like what is it called, consumerism, all the pieces that we have to survive
That's
every
another
day.
thing that I was terribly afraid of. Like, dang, I'm putting out a book where it says in 99% of the cases, you don't have to go to a botanica. You don't have to get things that are not in your body or in the pantry. Botanicas are going to hate me. Like they will be like, cállate, you know. But I had to do it because that's how was done. And I'm like, okay, we're
Yeah.
like complaining about capitalism and we're complaining about colonialism, but
Here you are.
let's do something about it, and
Let's
let's
do
talk
something
how
about it.
it's done.
Yeah.
So even like there is a lot of like spells where like you don't even have to buy these. You can still like ask your neighbor for cinnamon, or you can this or that. And that was one of my concerns, that they're not going to carry, because then they're not going to come back and say, hey, I need this from here and this from that, because but
Hey,
no,
listen.
I got super lucky that seriously a lot of like esoteric shops and place like pretty much in all the United States is like carrying it, and they some of them even fucking like jack the prices of the book. I saw
Yes.
somebody who was selling my book for $48 because it was a list of 1 month to get it. Now it's only like 17 days. Like you have to wait.
Holy crap. But yeah,
So I
that's
was like,
feeding
that's
the
so
beast.
not like it should be. I was so mad. Like,
Yeah.
no.
They're feeding the beast out here and you're doing the work. So either you're on the train or you're off the train, you guys. Either you're on the train or you're off. If you're about that life, claim your dollar.
Yeah.
Bring your power back. Keep your
Yeah.
dollars. I think another thing too is you did a great job, like I was saying earlier when we were talking about the Iberian parts of our DNA, you did an amazing job to also sprinkle in some of the magical symbols and talismans and ingredients that were taught to us by our brothers and sisters who are Jewish and Moorish and from Spain and all that. And one of the things that I noticed was, and this is something that I work with very closely too, is this idea of hot and cold herbs, which you see
The
a
polarity.
lot in the Middle East and in India and Ayurvedic medicine. You don't see that too much in Western medicine. And this idea of the properties of hot and cold and how, like attracts like, and or, opposite will cure the opposite. And I was like, yes, somebody finally
Well,
said
in the
it.
Codice Badiano,
Mm-hmm.
um, is a lot of that. Like it's a lot of traces. Not specifically like that, but you can see it. Like so that is part of our indigenous heritage too.
Yes.
So which is amazing. And I try to like even with the amulets, the talismans, like to put just like you said, like this one that is I have the Nazar. I have right now my tetragrammaton, that was my grandma's tetragrammaton, and that was my mom. But I put the cross of Ocote, who is an
Mm.
indigenous already syncretized with the cross, but is made from Ocote, which is you know that's what, instead of like candles that was used to like to illuminate in the night. They used to use ocote with
I have
certain.
I have a
So
question. The part in your book where you were talking about fetishes, right?
yes.
I just have a quick question because the way that you described fetishes was kind of like that it's a form of art. It's like
Hmm.
art that like gets infused, if you will.
Hmm.
Does that also imply singing as well? Like, can singing be quote unquote a fetish or like a way to send out magic?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, like
Yeah,
words are a powerful tool for magic.
yeah,
And yeah, singing, clapping, any
yeah.
sound pretty much can be like a way of
Doing the thing. I
But
don't.
yeah,
Okay,
it
so
was.
here's my dilemma that I'm going through right now. So we have
Mhm.
3 minutes left. I have so much stuff about your book that I want to talk about. I can talk about this book forever because it really truly is that amazing. But we have to go. And so is it okay if I invite you back on a later
Yeah,
date to keep this
yeah, yeah, yeah.
conversation going?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, anytime
So
that
yeah,
you want, I'm free.
yes. But before we go, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with? Either some words of wisdom, or maybe something specific from the book that you want to make sure they walk away with. Just anything.
Um, just just I want to say thank you for all the support and all the love, because it has been like overwhelming in a good way. Um, and just that, like,
Just
I
thank
know,
you.
just yeah, and I know a lot of you like still wonder, how or why, or you feel disconnected, but that disconnection was made totally out of love and to give you a better life. Th-
Thank you so
That's it.
much. Thank you so, so, so much for coming on tonight. Those of you guys who are in the live right now, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. I do see a question here. So if you have questions, but there is time for some questions. I see a question here from Dragon Rue. What is a good protection for sleeping problems that you get from bad spirits?
Well, one
Ooh.
thing that I do a lot is I work with San Jose Dormido. It's an advocation of San Jose. He's next to my bed, and he protects you in your sleep. You know,
Ooh.
that's another like commercial here is going to be a commercial. My friend Elohim Lefar, he just put a book out for dreaming and for like dream magic, with a lot of us like contributions, mostly from Latin witches, brujas.
I
So
see.
he's talking all about dreams, and
So make sure
like
you get it. I think it's coming
yeah,
out December of this year. December of this year. And I'll make sure to set the links and everything. And I'll also give the link to your book as well. I'll leave that in the comments as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a like a way, give him a follow, because that book is going to talk a lot of like shamanism, from Amazonas, because he's from Venezuela. He was born and raised in Venezuela.
Mm.
English is his second language, like me. So if you speak him talk, he just like me, like with his thick accent. He's awesome. So that is going to be a really good book too.
And how can people reach you? What is your contact information? Do you have any upcoming projects, or are you teaching anywhere, doing anything? What's going on with you?
Well, because I'm right now I'm working on another book.
Oh my God,
Well,
woman.
so hopefully, like I can give you some details, but right now, like it's everything like we're not saying anything.
But she's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. She's in all the places. Look for
Yeah,
Daphne La
la
Eche.
hechicera.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So once again, you guys, thank you so much. Let's do a few shout outs before we get going. We have MV in the house, Zelma, Comic Love, La Feru Lais, Big Russ, Sonia Lopez, Jen. There's Elohim right there. Lafar, he's there. Rob Abbott, the Guard Owl,
Well,
Muertero Chris, Wendy, oh my goodness, Lovera, Tobias, Sunshine, Creatrix, you guys, oh my God,
so
there's
yeah,
so
follow
many of you.
Elohim, because he's the one who's going to do the book of the dreams. So
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So make sure you catch this live on the replay. The replay will be up on YouTube and Facebook by tomorrow morning. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And Daphne, once again, thank you so, so much for blessing us with your wisdom and your time tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and definitely going to invite you back on the show. And for those of you guys out there, don't forget, this is how we grow. Bye.